Have you ever wondered what narcosis feels like? Have you ever wondered, can I train for narcosis? Well, I have, and you're probably looking at the most narcosis freediver in the world. And when I'm done telling you my story, I think you might agree with me. Hello everyone, my name's Tory. I'm a professional freediver, deepest human in the Western Hemisphere, for now. And I'd like to talk to you about narcosis. Specifically, my narcosis. Imagine this. You go to 120 meters, diving down. That's almost 400 feet. And the last thing you remember is the bottom turn. You don't remember the entire way up. In fact, the first thing you remember is 50 seconds after surfacing, high-fiving somebody. So how do you train a person that you're not in control of? That's something I had to deal with, and that's something I had to learn. So there are chapter markers below if you want to skip ahead to any portion of the video that pertains to you more. I want to share my experience specifically and a few different theories pertaining to narcosis. And at the end, I want to tell you how I trained for it. The first time I experienced narcosis was on a 40-meter, 30-second hang. I've become so familiar with the process itself and the feeling and the phenomenon that I can pinpoint exactly when it starts for me nowadays. Usually after 60 meters and 70 meters on the descent, I can actually feel it starting to creep in. That's just because I've become very familiar with the feeling. But the real extent of narcosis, the entire atmosphere of it, doesn't happen until the bottom turn, either on a deep hang or regular target dive. That is where narcosis lives. This is where the entire memory blackout happens, or the fuzzy feelings, or the auditory or visual hallucinations start. What's interesting is that my memory blackouts would only happen on target dives, and the auditory and visual hallucinations only seem to happen on the deeper hangs. I think this has something to do with energy expenditure. Now, what's weird about this, and something I've noticed over the years, is the less CO2 you build up on the way down, the less the narcosis will be. How do I know this? Well, if I do a variable weight and I let the weight carry me down, doing most of the work for the entire descent, the narcosis is much less. If I ride a scooter down, the CO2 buildup is a lot less, and the narcosis is a lot less. So if you think about it, it makes sense. The portion of the dive where you're going to be putting that mixture of air to work the most is going to be at the bottom turn and during the ascent. At the beginning of the dive, you're not going to be using as much energy because that's when you have the most. And then after the beginning of the dive is during the free fall. That's when you're using the least. So the moment you do that bottom turn is when you're going to put that mixture of air to work the most during that dive. FYI, there's 78% nitrogen in that last breath of air that you took. So it makes sense that the nitrogen in that last breath of air that you took is also going to get to work and have its effects on you. And if you're me, that means narcosis. Extreme narcosis. Based on this observation, you could in theory work on your technique, which would improve your CO2 tolerance, negating some of the effects of narcosis, but not entirely. However, I don't think it's the most effective way to deal with it. And the reason I say that is because it's law of diminishing returns. Yes, if you're more resistant to CO2, you can do more with less energy. That's going to benefit you no matter what you're doing in freediving. And yes, it should mitigate the narcosis just a little bit, but what I found is a much better way to control yourself when under the effects of narcosis, just by doing very intense visualizations the day before. And that's what I want to share with you here in a minute. So what's interesting is you might see freedivers jokingly drinking and saying that they're training for narcosis. Why is that? It's because there seems to be a very strong correlation between heavy drinkers being resistant to it and non-drinkers being very sensitive to it. However, there are always freedivers that are exception to this rule and throw the theory right out the window. So take that observation for what you will. It happens enough that it's a very strong correlation rather than just a causation, and it's definitely worth noting. Okay, so you can just start drinking and mitigate some of the symptoms? So just start drinking? Well, that's not what I'm saying. Remember when I said I found a better way to control yourself under the effects of narcosis? Yes, I was able to control somebody I had no memory of being just by doing very intense visualizations the day before. I know this because I would lay Easter eggs for myself the day before during the visualization for the next day during the dive, and these were things that I don't normally do. Like I would fist pump towards the safety when I see them pick me up at about 20 or 30 meters, or I would do this at the dive eye. And these aren't things I would normally do during a dive, but I would lay these Easter eggs as proof that it was working, and that's when I started to believe in it more and more. So If I wasn't normally doing these things, but then the next day I see on video or somebody's telling me I did them, I was like a proud father almost. Like, I couldn't believe it was working. In my next video, and depending on when you're watching this, it might already be out. You can click on it right now. Or if you're watching it right after I uploaded it, my next video on visualizations will go very deep into detail on this. So this is more than just going in your head and going through the dive. This is a timed visualization based on your actual stats from all of your diving. On top of that, you're doing some of the physical work of the dive, but it's meant to mentally stress you out and not physically stress you out. So what does this mean? It means you're not going to be holding your breath for the entire exercise. You're only going to hold your breath for very small portions of it. This also means you're going to be doing the physical part of very important parts of the dive. For instance, the beginning, maybe the mouthfeel area, maybe an area of the dive that you always have issues with. That's where you're going to go through the physical motions more than others. But during the rest of it, you're going to be calm, cool, and collective, but you're not allowed to be laying down in the comfort of your bed, just going through it. That's not going to do anything for you. You need to mix a certain level of the physical and the mental while doing it. So I've really broken this down into a science, and I'm going to go over it in very great detail in the next video. But for now, I'm going to put a link to the app that I use that takes me through my visualizations. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to program your dives, and I'm going to show you how to do this from start to finish. In this video, I just wanted to share with you my experience of narcosis, how much it has held me back and how scary it can be. And I also wanted to offer you a solution that worked for me, which was very intense visualization. But for the sake of not making this video run too long, check out the next video where I'm going to go very deep in detail on how to actually program your visualizations and execute them. I used to only do this to train myself under narcosis, but when I started to do this for people that I was coaching, I had tremendous feedback from them saying it helped them become much more calm, cool, and collective under the stress of competition and just doing your regular dive. So because of the overwhelming good feedback that I've gotten, I'm going to show you how to do this in the next video. So click here if it's already up, or subscribe below because it's going to be coming out in a few days. Also, if you're interested in other unique freediving topics, check out my other video over here or over here. So please subscribe and stay tuned, and like the video if you learned something.